Conrad last time we had him on stream, although it's a little bit different build than we saw No Hands being played as well. Just a little bit less greedy on the top and a little bit more survival-oriented with more removal tools in life game. So let's go into the APM Priest, the Topsy-Turvy Priest, Quest Priest. It's all of the above for PlanetHunter up against Even Warlock. Now, I know that we knock on decks a lot here in HCT because that's part of our job. We're supposed to praise the good plays and also question the questionable plays. But also in terms of decks, we usually raise our eyebrows to ones that feel a little bit borderline. And people really were evaluating the weight and the power of this Quest Priest, saying that it wasn't actually that good. But, you know, in order to get to this stage, you have to win with it a lot. So it feels like a player being able to bring it this far in a tournament is a testament that maybe there's more to this deck than we're thinking.
I definitely feel like it's on the fence right now, where, you know, I'd heard some players tout this as like the new Grim Patron, which was one of the most dominant decks of all time in Hearthstone. It was very difficult to play and yielded very big results if you did it correctly. But I've heard some players say they don't have faith in it, they don't believe in it, it's too inconsistent, it dies to aggro, what have you. And I really feel like I've seen every single angle of it. And to me, it's becoming in that phase of another combo deck. It could be very strong of a combo deck, but it has those hands where you're not going to win a game, and there's not really a way to get it done. And so I'm not quite sure where I sit with it yet. It wasn't overrepresented at the tour stop here, and it does require a good deal of experience and quality play in order to get it done. I'm not entirely convinced yet, but I'm not super skeptical either. I think it's a deck that could be, in and out of the metagame where tournaments are concerned.
Yeah, I think there's two things about this deck that stick out to me. The first is the dependence on early game draw. Dead Ringer is so important to this deck, but Loot Hoarder is a nice consolation prize, and of course Blood Mage Thanos to shore it up. The second is making sure that they have their removal lined up in the appropriate matchups, right? Like Psychic Scream and Mass Hysteria being very important. But even the outcome of Mass Hysteria can also be really important.
Yeah.
And I feel like because of these couple of factors which need lining up, it's much less consistent than Grim Patron, which Death Bites did the same thing every single time.
Yeah.
Inner Rage Whirlwind on Grim Patron did the
Execute.
same thing every time.
Same thing.
Frothing Berserker was like the same thing every time as long as you could count correctly. This feels a little bit more unreliable based off that because Priest is not as good as the Patron Warrior was at surviving.
Yeah, I think that's really the sentiment too. And for me, it's hands like this one that don't quite have me convinced. Vivid Nightmare is a really key card to have in your hand at the end of the game. Both Radiant Elementals are very key things. You don't really have a lot of ways to cycle if you don't have Death Rattle minions that cycle. You're not setting up big card draw turns. You're really at the mercy of how your draw pans out. And so that's one of the things for me where I feel like I'm slotting it into that combo aspect. It's if you have the right opening hand, look out because you have a lot of potential on your side. But when you have those below average ones, I feel like you don't necessarily have an opportunity to get yourself out of it. I feel like it's very difficult to navigate with the suboptimal hands. And when I say difficult, I mean like percentage-wise. So you just don't have a lot of super strong things to do.
Yeah, another thing too, in comparison to the Grim Patron deck, is that you still always had a chance to win as long as you could kind of like hold on to one patron type of scenario. I feel like this deck doesn't have that ability to fall back onto something in case you have to part ways with like a Stone Toss board. It's like, how do you win at that point? You have to like assume that your opponent can't answer your board ever if you build up like this giant infinite Divine Spirit, or we saw that happen where you accidentally burn like the last copy of a certain card. What's your backup way to win?
Yeah, it definitely has the one full steam ahead style game plan. You have to execute that. And there's not too many other ways to win.
That being said, the ceiling of this deck is enormous.
Yes.
It's capable of literally infinite damage.
It's like one of the things that really excites me about the future of this deck is seeing any breakthroughs that happen or seeing, iterations of any of those are undiscovered right now. There's a lot of players, they use a simulator to practice a bunch of different iterations where you can set all different kinds of parameters on what hand type you want, what the opposing board looks like, and they're trying to get all these actions done under a certain amount of time. You also are limited by the timer on your turn. I'm curious if there's any deck building that can change this deck or anything that hasn't been discovered quite yet. I think the Amara is working quite well right now, but I'm not 100% sold on it, and I'm also not 100% sold, as crazy as it sounds, on Psychic Screams in this deck. I feel like this happens so often when I'm playing this deck. I don't have enough minions, and I have too many spells that clog my hand.
Well, I think he'd be okay with even parting ways with Power Word Shield on his opponent's minion, just to draw, because he can coin out Psychic Scream. He's most likely not going to die if he calculates the maximum amount of damage from Conrad. He's not going to die next turn.
Even Warlock's
It's
not
just
exactly,
scary.
It's not exactly bringing the beats.
Oh.
That's a good one. So I think part of the consideration for PlanetHunter is, he's going to coin Psychic Dream next turn. Did he want to shuffle in a Sun Fury Protector in the opposing deck, or did he not want to?
Right. But sort of a moot point at this stage because he would have killed the Acidic Swamp Ooze. So
Yeah.
it's all good in the hood.
I think ideally he'd like to shuffle both in, but, at the end of the day, I think sustaining your life total is a very important facet.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people might focus in on that Blood Mage Thanos, but keep in mind, PlanetHunter was still not going to die no matter what Conrad did. It just so happened that he drew probably one of the best cards possible.
Yeah, for me.
And it did take a little bit of audacity to power shield your opponent's minion, which is not exactly an intuitive play.
Yeah, for me, it's just that it was a 2-mana way to cycle through the deck, and it did give him, a couple extra points of life. But just the cycling, I think, is the bigger deal of it.
Another really important card, but for now, I'm pretty sure PlanetHunter can't avoid Psychic Screaming in this position.
Only options are Take 13 or Psychic Scream.
I mean, he could still survive any pressure. Like, the big powers are, like, when things like Bone Mirror get online, because then it's, like, another additional burst potential that you have to worry about.
Yeah, something I'm looking at is there's 2 copies of Topsy-Turvy in the deck. I'm wondering if you can ever Topsy to, maybe lay out some of the damage from your opponent, get the Dead Ringer online to try to keep the Death Rattle chain going more. I would say a bigger interest is probably in using a test subject with Topsy, so you can buy the Topsy back and then make some progress on Amara. Right now, for PlanetHunter, I think it's buy time to Amara.
Yeah, that makes sense. And does he play Seance in his deck? He does not.
No copies of Seance.
Okay.
It does have 1 copy of Wild Pyromancer.
So a little bit more anti-aggro.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Wild Pyromancer in this deck, too. I feel
makes
like
sense.
I feel like there's got to be a way to take advantage of Wild Pyro, because the aggro decks feel like they've just been pushing this deck so far. Like, I think the mid-range stuff, like even Warlock, can definitely suffer to this style of play. I'm looking at the raw aggressive factor that can really put this deck to the test.
All right, well, Conrad's, quote, power turns are starting on 8 this game instead of any turns prior to it, given that he's been holding reactive tech cards as opposed to proactive threats outside of Bone Marrow.
Yeah, and so you can see now the importance of making progress on Amara. I think it's a super important tool to have, but that is a long way away, and this would be Psychic Scream number 2, which is going to leave your nose open.
Maybe. I think he can be okay if he just Dead Ringers and passes and hope that Dead Ringer can draw a card, assuming Conrad doesn't silence it.
Yeah.
And then Psychic Scream by himself just another turn.
I'm thinking almost any way you slice it that he's going to have to do something fairly drastic in order to win this game. So I'm liking the Dead Ringer a lot more the more I think about it, because he just got to get something going.
Dead Ringer is really important. Who was it that told me? I think it was Gallon. He said he thinks Dead Ringer is like responsible for the majority of its win rate. He says if it's like 50% win rate currently on ladder, he thinks like the 20% that it gained is from like Dead Ringer's consistency, and then Mass Hysteria giving you the survivability.
Yeah, it's important to note that prior to Rostakon's Rumble, this was one of the lowest overall win rate decks according to data aggregate sites.
Yeah. Like, given its sample size. Obviously, there's probably decks out there that are much worse. But in terms of how much it was represented, it actually created a tier in itself. That's how bad it was. It was literally like tier 5. It was below 30% win rate.
Wow, that's below.
Because tier 4 is like, 40s. Like low 40s and like, 30s-ish. And then like tier 3 is like 45 to 50% right under. And then tier 2 is like 50 and above. And it's like, it was just so horrendously bad.
So what you're saying is that you and I are responsible for the tier after that.
Yes.
Seven is a safe life total in terms of burst damage from Conrad. The actual only burst damage is going to be minion seeded, or it's going to be Hellfires for Conrad at the moment. So
That's right.
out of the range of 2 Hellfires, but we're closing in on those turns where every single minion is going to threaten lethal.
Yeah. And the quest is about 3 out of 7, still not anywhere close to where it needs to be.
PlanetHunter, I think, is looking at a Mass Hysteria turn to see if he can maybe buy some development alongside it. But
yeah, well, you could do that. So you could trade in the Dead Ringer. If you draw Loot Horn number 2, you can play it and then Mass Hysteria. Ooh. That's not what you want to
yeah,
see.
one of the things I'm looking at now is, though, with Topsy and the Vivid Nightmare, I'm curious if there's any way that PlanetHunter could have, maybe made development on a fairly dead turn with, like, test subject Vivid Nightmare Topsy, just to try to make some progress on the Amara. And I think that's what he's eyeing for the next couple of turns. Like, this is going to take it up to 4, and the Vivid Nightmare would take it to 5, and then Topsy-Turvy with Vivid Nightmare nonsense. Like, you could realistically get to Amara next turn.
Oh, you're right.
Because the test subjects refund the Vivid Nightmare a lot of times. So Conrad, I'm thinking that, Mossy Harbor or Spellbreaker, those are 2 in the forefront of the mind. Even maybe just like a double Spellbreaker turn.
Yeah, I think I'd be more in favor of the just the Mossy Hearts, a little bit more expensive.
Twilight Drake.
Oh, okay. Twilight Drake and Spellbreaker look really good at this point.
He doesn't have to worry about using Spellbreaker to push through Amara because he has Black Knight for that. If PlanetHunter gets to 40, that's really the toughest part about it. I think that, pushing really the least of the concern at that point. But looking like instead he wants to start juicing the Gul'dan.
Or just threaten lethal. Spirit Lash.
So quest progress is at 4 or 5 right now?
4, and PlanetHunter can finish it this turn. If you toss in Radiant Elemental, I think. I mean, there's even if you got super desperate, tossing the second test subject, but it is possible to finish the quest. Is it possible to do all that and survive?
Yeah, if you throw in the second test subject, you're then at the mercy of Twilight's Call being the way to win at that point. You have to then Twilight's Call out a test subject in order to keep going.
Which is just not reliable whatsoever.
That is not a realistic plan. That may increase the percentage overall, but it feels super unreliable to me. And Vivid Nightmare, even still, just on its own, that is a key tool as well. You don't necessarily just want to toss it away, which is, why the test subject being the Death Rattle was so important this turn. If you're going to use it, you get the refund, and you actually get 2 of them as a refund. He's going to
Wow. Desperation. Here's the thing, too. Like, the pieces that you see in the hand require another Divine Spirit, but it needs 1 extra card, which
Radiant
is
and
another Radiant Elemental.
Yeah, like, this is so hard to get to at this point, He's down 3 of the big AoE cards, and right now, the AoE isn't even really lining up to what Conrad's going to do.
Yeah, if this was a board clear, there was still like an out. Now, PlanetHunter's best hope is weak development, draw into a Twilight's Call, and then draw the pieces of the combo, but he's not going to be given that time. This is a lethal setup for next turn, and both Psychic Screens have been used.
Yeah, I'm still quite surprised.
Oh, wait, never mind. Not a lot of demons.
I'm still quite surprised by the fact that Vivid Nightmare wasn't used the previous turn. It would have made 1 extra point of progress on the Amara, and it would put 2 Vivid Nightmares in the hand so that maybe you can use something for utility. You can get the job done technically with Radiant and 2 Vivid Nightmares.
I think it was purely based around the double Hellfire play, because he would have died if he did double Hellfire.
That's the thing, though, is if you give Conrad time to get on Gul'dan, now you're fearing just a single Hellfire.
Yep, there's 5 on the board, plus hero power is 8, plus 3 is 11.
And that 1 point of progress now, that's a huge difference. because that would have been take Twilight's Call, use Twilight's Call, play Amara instead. And you could see the difficulty of these decks. It's minuscule decisions that make the difference.
Yep. No, you're absolutely 100% right. This should have been an Amara setup.
And instead, it's going to be
Now he's
Spellbreaker.
dead.
Sets the attack back to 6, and in game 1 goes over to Conrad.
Wow. A lot of nuance to this specific matchup, and in the end, Conrad gets a win. But you know what? I guess we're lucky because I want to see this deck again.
Now,
and
I'm by no means an expert with Topsy Priest. Necessarily, in my opinion, the decks that Topsy's going to match up well against, but sometimes just well-rounded lineups is a thing to have. You know, you have just decks across the board that can win all your matchups. So I think that is a very reasonable strategy to have. You don't have to be targeting in Conquest.
Yeah.
It's just shown that, you know, having 2 soft or, you know, 1 hard target oftentimes is just a very successful strategy to have. But there's all kinds of variety that you can have in this one. And it also could just be enjoyability factor. You know, sometimes people just play the decks that they like to play because they like to play them.
also fair.
If a deck's good and you like playing it, why not?
No keeps for PlanetHunter, and I agree with that. Unless you have those 2 cards in the middle, Loot Hoarder and Dead Ringer, you should not think about keeping Twilight's Call. It's just a dead card unless you can get that.
Yeah, much different looking hand for PlanetHunter. You know, this is the kind of hand that I envision makes players think this deck is so powerful. It's when you have Awaken the Makers, you have the Death Rattle chain to start, and then if you pick up a Twilight's Call, it's like, look out. You make so much progress toward Amara, and you draw so many cards that it's difficult to not find the combo. You know, I found having too many cards in hand to be my biggest problem.
Yeah, it's not even really a joke, and I think you're completely spot on. The Death Rattle Hunter here for Conrad has pretty standard deck list. It reminds me of Language Hacker's build that has the Defender of Argus to help create taunts out of eggs or other big minions.
Yeah, copy of Mossy Harbor and Savannah Highmane, the 4th big beast for Conrad. This one a bit slower in this matchup, and you know, I'd say overall a bit weaker, but you know, still just a fine minion. You know, it's something big, and through mass hysteria, it definitely can get the job done.
Agreed. PlanetHunter just at least stopping and thinking about what he wants to do. Would love to see the trade and see what he picks up. Another Dead Ringer, so good.
Yeah, so the reason I think that Dead Ringer is such an important card is, you know, it's accomplishing 2 game plans at once. It's thinning out your deck and making Amara progress. But second is that it makes your card draw follow-up afterwards that much more powerful. Instead of drawing more Death Rattle minions that, you know, that's Dead Ringer's job to do, you're drawing the rest of the cards from your deck. And so being able to chain Dead Ringers into Loot Hoarders is a much different game plan than vice versa.
Yeah. And I like the restraint here from PlanetHunter. Saving the coin is also super important. Wow, Witchwood Piper.
Yeah, so that would be the trade first, and then Witchwood Piper if you wanted to use that.
Can draw the next lowest cost card. So this will pull out Blood Mage Thanos or the other Loot Hoarder, and then
or the other test subject. The
you're right.
Dead Ringer.
And then Witchwood Piper can draw the other.
Right. So if you draw the test subject from the Dead Ringer, what that means is the Witchwood Piper guarantees you draw the boar. So now it's a 50% chance on the boar for the Witchwood Piper. I think it's one of the reasons that you see it often included is that, you know, Dead Ringer doing its job of drawing a specific type of minion. You do need the board to win the game at some point.
Eight cards in hand, so playing 2 cards is perfectly fine, but Thanos plus Spirit Lash is a really powerful tool, plus Witchwood Piper is really expensive, so you get it out of your hand a little bit earlier.
It's also opportunity cost on the hero power. You know, you're not necessarily sad to use it.
Okay. I'm down for that, too. I wasn't really thinking about it. I was thinking about the double 2s
also
or
with
the Witchwood Piper.
It's also with the hand, like, I feel like your minion chain is fairly strong right now. Twilight's Call is, you know, fully active. Drawing real cards instead of, you know, specific types of cards, I think can be a very big benefit right now. You know, Twilight's Call, I think, is one of the best draws that PlanetHunter has at the moment.
Oh, absolutely. The other test subject. So now it's a guaranteed draw of the Stone Tusk board.
Yeah, and here you start to see the hand size issue. So PlanetHunter is, you know, probably going to have to manage that in the next couple turns. If he just goes for Shadow Visions and tries to find Twilight's Call, overdraws are a very real thing. Typically, you don't really care that much about overdraws, but when you're playing a combo deck, that drastically changes.
Yeah, it's in this case, overdrawing, there's so many pieces that you have to avoid overdrawing. Granted, you still can win without them. It just make it a little bit more difficult because there's only one copy left, and if it's in the bottom part of your deck, then you're stranded.
Yeah, prior to that Stone Tusk Spore, Stone Tusk Spore, Divine Spirit, Radiant Elemental, all of those are pretty disastrous overdraws. Mm-hmm. The Radiant Elementals, they need to come in pairs. You need multiples of those to fully execute.
You could have 2 Vivid Nightmares to get the job done, which functions similarly. It's just less guaranteed.
Yeah.
Because you have to draw them, and then if you don't draw them, you have to discover them through Shadow Visions.
Yeah, and I think for PlanetHunter here, the idea was get the boar out of the deck, and then we're coming up on a Coin Psychic Scream turn, start dumping hand afterwards. Make space for combo.
And I think Conrad knows that as well because the coin's been saved for so long. So if he goes for a full extension with Devil Sword Egg and Terrascale Stalker, he's going to get all that stuff shuffled back.
Yeah, and if he doesn't extend enough, that means PlanetHunter has alternative plays. Gets to save coin and start building a better hand. So he's pretty committed to pressuring somehow. Just one of those feels bads.
Yeah, and I think this is probably the best compromise. So that way, the Terrascale Stalker itself doesn't get shuffled in. You get to squeeze in a little bit more damage.
Ooh, also with the rush trade here, though, that does potentially offer PlanetHunter the Blood Mage Spirit Lash instead.
Yes. Especially with the Loot Hoarder being drawn, that adds a little bit extra health and a couple cards deeper in the deck. Yeah. Plus the quest progression.
So, the Egg's not really too threatening because you have the Psychic Scream. Shaw is only 3 damage a turn. It's just a big back end, so it's tough to actually eliminate it for PlanetHunter. Mm-hmm. But 3 damage a turn is not really cranking that much, and so I think that the Spirit Lash turn here is quite welcome for PlanetHunter.
I mean, you're gaining 12 life. Oh, I guess he's just gonna toss in Loot Hoarder afterwards, or he's gonna discover.
He's thinking about the heal as well.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, I keep forgetting just using the hero power is also very good towards your game plan because it drags out the game. Exactly what you're trying to do.
Yeah, outside of Spirit Lash and Amara, there's no healing in the deck. You have to be using hero powers if you want to heal. But I think I would tend to just favor drawing in this spot. And for Shadow Visions, I'm not convinced PlanetHunter knows exactly what he needs just yet. And also the development's looking quite good. So I think the patience here is working out very well. Conrad's burst is limited to having a minion in play with charge, and then being able to follow up the next turn. And so if a big charge minion sits in play, it's important to have Psychic Scream for that moment.
Yeah, this is just really awkward now because Conrad was trying to play around the Psychic Scream, but now as a result, fell into the same problem anyways, which is just not enough pressure.
He's getting cornered now. That's really the tough part of that AoE dance too, is if you're too conservative, you give your opponent more options, and more options can often mean more time. And the time definitely favors PlanetHunter right now. First Radiant found.
Yep, so Divine Spirit, and then everything is good to go. Mass Hysteria.
Mass Hysteria always feels dangerous versus Death Rattle Hunter to me.
Yeah.
They
just could just have a 5-attack minion remaining.
Yeah, they just have such wonky-sized minions. Like, say you Mass Hysteria here, Shaw hits the 3-1, 5-5 hits the egg. Like, you add an attack to your opponent's board in that instance.
I think this is a perfectly reasonable time to Psychic Scream, too.
It's right before the Katharina turn, though.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Katharina turn, that means you're still taking damage either way. Like, if you save the Psychic Scream for after Katharina, you're still going to take big damage off of whatever beast gets summoned off of it.
That's really the issue here, too, is if he doesn't Psychic Scream, if he doesn't Psychic Scream him, sometimes you can just die, too. That's the greatest outcome for PlanetHunter.
Wow.
So you get to eliminate 6 attack from board. Up to 21. And Conrad doesn't have Katharina. So some breathing room for PlanetHunter, I think.
Yeah, some much-needed breathing room. But the truth is that we're not talking too much about is that PlanetHunter also has Amara at any time now. Okay, just test subject and then...
Oh, yeah, the Vivid Nightmare.
The Vivid Nightmare, Topsy-Turvy, and then get both back and play Amara.
Yeah,
so,
and that's why the Spider Bomb, I think, is coming down this turn as well. You know, not only for pressure, but just it's directly into an Amara turn. Much harder to play Amara when you know it's going to die.
Sheer necessity.
Yeah, this one not quite offering the same potential as as the last Mass Hysteria.
Yep, so I believe Quest is 5 out of 7, and PlanetHunter is just racking his brain. Test subject, Vivid Nightmare, and then you can flip in. You still have enough room to coin out Amara. That's if you feel the need to do that.
It's funny to me because the test subjects are actually kind of protecting the Amara from Spider Bomb. But Conrad has Mossy Harbor in hand, so he gets to make a 5/5, kill the test subjects, kill the Spider Bomb, which then hits the Amara and pushes.
That's so sick.
The problem is PlanetHunter is going to be at 40 health, so it's it's like a necessity turn. You have to have something big to do. She's woke. And PlanetHunter going to be getting 2 Vivid Nightmares in the test subject as well, so hand size still continues to be a bit of an issue.
But dumping the coin was a pretty nice incentive or as a nice reward, and that's why it was incentive for him to even do this play. Hunter's Mark also a pretty good opportunity here with Candle Shot to eliminate part of the board. Mossy Hard does feel fairly reliable though. And you also get to create a 5/5 in hero power. Just feels really too good.
It adds about the same amount of attack to board. It makes a big swing on the opponent's side, and it keeps King Crush in your hand for the turn that you need it. It's just all very important things.
All right, now we're just 1 Divine Spirit away. 1 Divine Spirit, and PlanetHunter has this game, and the Shadow Visions can help get there. I mean, if PlanetHunter has 3 or less spells, then it's just all but guaranteed.
I have still...
Second Spirit Lash also, I think it might be it.
I have still yet to ever personally execute the game plan with just Radiant and 2 Vivid Nightmares.
It's the same thing. You just, instead of Radiant Elemental back-to-back, you just Radiant Elemental Vivid Nightmare and start the combo.
It's just, I haven't been able to do it because every time I had it set up, my opponent has either played Nerubian Spellweaver or Mojo Master Zihi the turn I was going to do it.
Well, this game is assuming there's no error on PlanetHunter's end. The combo has been assembled. 7 out of these 10 cards have relevance towards it. I mean, there's even a little bit of extra insurance. And is Conrad trying to go for the mind games of maybe distracting PlanetHunter? This is the probably part where I'd probably be yelling a lot and shaking the table. Just doing like uncomfortably embarrassing
throwing
things.
paper airplanes across.
So the crux of this combo, for people who don't know, is that every spell you cast in the test subject, you get it, but it keeps stacking based off the original one you keep copying, so you get more Vivid Nightmares and Divine Spirits back, and as long as you're able to get it to that 32 mark and flip it with Topsy-Turvy, it'd be the game. And it looks like PlanetHunter, hands are off the mouse, which means that he has all but insured it.
Yeah, that's why it's referred to oftentimes as APM Priest. It requires a lot of actions to get this done, and it requires decisiveness in those actions as well. You have to take a lot of them, and it's a nod to the games of yore that required you to have high actions in order to win games and be good at them.
And the cool thing is you can Vivid Nightmare and create more boards. I love it! Yes!
Get him!
Yes!
Look at me.
Another one.
I'm the hunter
Please
now.
Trade. Aww. Please trade and just summon one more. But hey, I love a little bit of flash and pizzazz, even if
an absurd amount of ramp. If you're able to ramp a ton, that's really one of the big benefits. And then the second one is, even with Hex in there's 2 Witching Hours in the list for Conrad, so he does have 2 chances in the case of Hex to still get a Hadronox back. If you're able to secure one big board early on, though, that's really, I think, one of the tough spots for PlanetHunter, where if Conrad can just chain together a bunch of taunts and then hang on to Hadronox at the end of the game, you can Hadronox naturalize, make one big board, and then secure the win with branching paths. You know, that's often the plan that I have found to be most successful from the Taunt Druid perspective, is you're not relying as much on infinite boards of taunts as much as you are on one big board and then a branching path to close.
Makes sense to me, but double X in the hand.
2 pair. What's the kicker?
Very
We'll find out
powerful.
next turn.
I hope it's a high card.
Is Glacial Shard the ace? It's definitely Callus, that's the ace. Yeah.
Tells us for sure the ace.
I'll take a life trigger
Wow. Well, it's kind of like an offsuit full house.
then. Yeah. You need the Zola for that one. Or the Grumble, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be funny. I guess what would be like the Royal Flush equivalent? It has to be like the Aviana Kuhn Starliner.
Are you kidding me, Dan?
Psych Melon build.
Zombie Chow, Shielded Minibot, Muster for Battle, Piloted Shredder, Lothep.
No, that's a straight. That's a low straight.
But that's the Royal Flush. It's
Yeah.
Paladin. It's the 5 cards you want.
No, the Royal Flush was like the Dr. Boom, the Tyrion,
You're right. It's the Mysterious Challenger and the 5 secrets
Yeah.
that come with it.
Farsight on 3.
I'll take that.
Yep. It's pretty much as good as it gets. I like that PlanetHunter's like, he's trying to be disciplined by spacing out the timing of his plays to not make his hand very obvious. But it's just like watching his mannerisms on camera while he's just like looking up and trying to distract himself. Like, okay, what do I want for lunch?
It is important to be taking the same amount of time if you're against a proficient hand reading opponent. And, you know, sort of the nature of it is, you know, the tougher your competition gets, the better they are at hand reading. So, you know, taking the same amount of time to make a decision is, you know, very different from taking just a lengthy amount of time to make it. If you're a quick player, you want to be making quick plays. If you tend to play slow and methodical, you want to keep that trend.
Yeah. Now this turn, a little bit less obvious, because saving Farsight does have its uses if you pick up Electro Storm Surge, and Serenite Chain Gang is something you need to get into your pool, and you will be running into hand size issues if you keep playing the cheaper card every single time.
Yeah, one of the things that took me from about a 50-50 win rate with Shutterwalk and, you know, bumped me up about 5 points was my main focus was spending as much mana as I could, and if I could play 2 cards, I tended to do that, and if I could draw a card in one of those 2 cards I was playing, I would prioritize that. And so that is like kind of the mix that I've settled on, is you try to just spend as much mana as you can, and when I reach, you know, 6 or 7 mana, rather than play 1 big card, I was trying to play 2 cards at once. And
Yeah,
it's
and-
it's a very generic guideline to go by, but it helped me a lot in piloting the deck.
It's true. My win rate jumped up 5 points every time I drew Shutterwalk.
So what you're saying is you got all the way to 15 because you just never drew it.
One day.
600 games later, I'd never draw this card.
One day, I'll be able to break that elusive dad legend rank for him.
Look, escaping from Sea Giant is no joke. That's one of the toughest ones to get away from.
Seriously, you think that it's scary playing a top-end legend? Let me tell you about someone who has no fear and nothing to lose at the bottom of rank 5.
Yeah.
They will meme you, and in some ridiculous ways. And I contribute to that. You want to hear one of my... Actually, you know about one of my ideas. Shutterwalk Shaman. But instead of playing Life Drinker, you shuffle Seaphorium Bombers into their decks.
Yep.
And let me tell you something. That is some of the most hype I've ever had playing Hearthstone. Just by myself, alone. I locked my cat out of my room because he couldn't be part of it. It was just it was me time. It was time to focus on myself as an individual. And I went to some deep lengths to meme my opponents at rank 5. It was so funny, just shuffling nonstop bombs into my opponent's deck. And I beat an Odd Warrior. He drew like 16 in a row. It was so funny.
When Dan showed me the list yesterday, it has Ice Cream Vendor and Hildnir Frost Rider.
Yeah, it's a variant on the Ice Cream Shaman, but it's, instead of actually having no win condition, you actually have a win condition. Just shuffle a bajillion bombs in their deck.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
It's not eternal friendship. It's more like a game of Avalon gone terribly wrong with your friends.
Yeah, or like the Monopoly stall, where like neither of you guys can win.
You refuse to use the speed
Yeah,
die.
you're like, you know, I'm just gonna go to jail. Do you want to pay your way out of jail? I'm like, no, I'm good.
I'll take 3 turns.
No, I'm good. But
just never trade away your part
serious,
plays.
I wanted to play that deck on Omnistone one time, but I just realized that each game took like 45 minutes. We have no time for that.
Yeah, a lot of the banter is the nature of the matchup. It's a checklist for PlanetHunter, and for Conrad, a very similar thing. It's much bigger and longer and slower checklist, but it's about building to those big in-game stages. Conrad, that means the Hadronox, the naturalized turn. He wants to feel that rush at some point, but he's got to have a lot of taunts in the pool to do it. And for PlanetHunter, so far things have looked quite good. The Parahexes, the Life Drinker, Keliseth there. Card draw is the missing piece of this puzzle right now.
Also, I firmly believe that you can also use timing to mess with your opponent's head. Like, not in terms of the hand reading thing, but just to take excessively long times and make them a little bit upset.
When they're in a bad matchup, I would tend to think it works better. It's like the self-doubt can seep in more.
Right.
In that scenario.
Yeah. Especially if you have something that's fairly obvious. Like,
oh, yeah.
You should be playing this, like, Nourish on 5 type scenario, and you think very long and hard about it.
The old, I have Serenite, Kelis up on board, tank, grumble.
Yeah.
Like, come
or like,
on!
like Odd Warrior on 2, just thinking of this hero power. Just like,
maybe I should coin? Nah.
Yeah, or like even Paladin on 1, it's like,
No, the even Paladin on 2 is the one that gets me. You're pressing that button. Don't lie to me.
Oh!
We just talked about it.
What a rip. This is a really good draw here because now you have more Serenite Chain Gangs up. You can even add an additional Keliseth too. I don't think you were worried about hand space.
PlanetHunter is doing exactly what we just joked about. You just take your time and then you're going to grumble. Like, this is beautiful.
Yeah, but I want to make it a little bit more obvious and showboaty. Like, I will put my feet up and I start like counting the pocket, changing my pocket.
I suppose there's a chance he hexes this turn. I mean,
yes.
Dragon Hatcher is, quite a dangerous minion to leave in play. 2 summons off that means that Volcano suddenly gets a lot weaker. But I mean, you're making an 8/8 grumble this turn. I think you can handle the Dragon Hatcher right now.
You can even trade in Volcano, whatever comes out on the other end.
Some disaster scenarios are like weird double naturalized turns and what have you. This is beautiful. He's going to drop Keliseth instead of, the Saronite instead of the Keliseth. I would tend to prioritize that to save health and to, help chip away for, an impending Volcano turn. The buff's important, but I don't think it's as important as, just sustaining as much as you can. Yeah, if I'm in Conrad's seat, I'm like, what on earth is that hand? Like, the hand has to be so good.
Yeah.
I'd be upset.
But the thing is, now that it kind of makes sense, but if you know that this is the kind of player that does it, then it's less impactful, and you just stop caring about that. You keep focused on hand tracking, but then it becomes an endurance fight. Like, can you stay focused as long as he can?
I actually think that was a contributing factor to Bunny Hopper's win, is that endurance fight. Every single turn, except for like one where he had just the actual best turn possible, I think, in the deck, he would take the max amount of time to think of every iteration. Yeah. And his mental focus was 100% maintained throughout. Like, you could see that he was purely focused on the game. And if you go back and watch that summer championship that he won, it seemed like his opponents were getting, a tad frustrated or, even fatigued at times, just because he was.
Right.
It was such a long, grindy battle that he was fighting.
Yeah, but now the double hex is going to come into play. It sounds like we're kind of being cheeky, and almost to a certain extent, it sounds like Admiral and I are downplaying the importance, or like kind of making fun of the players. But it's actually fairly important to even take the time to evaluate your play too, because especially when it comes to drawing cards off the top of your deck or the actual top deck, you sometimes get a little trigger happy because you're like, oh, that's exactly the card I was thinking of. But it's almost confirmation bias against yourself. You're like, I think I need this card, and then the game shows it to you by slamming in your face, and you're like, well, I should just play that card. And the reason why I can say that is because I talked to Amnesiac one time, and he said that on average he spots the play that he wants to do within the first 5 to 10 seconds. It's like he says he has an idea of what he wants to do, but he takes the next 45 seconds or so, because Amnesiac's known as a roper in tournaments, to evaluate and to question himself and make him convince himself from an objective point of view that it's the correct play.
Yeah, it is very important. And, something else that's very important here is that Conrad has actually drawn the 3rd dragon that's in deck. PlanetHunter saw that Dragon Hunter summoned nothing, and it, becomes a much lower priority when that's the case.
Yeah.
The Hex on Lich King, that's pretty paramount. You're fearing a bit of, Death Grip shenanigans that could take place. But outside of that, I think PlanetHunter's sitting in a pretty good spot. There's a chance that Army of the Dead can get something done here, but with a lot of the big minions gone, Army of the Dead is, sometimes it's going to pull your Carnivorous Cubes, it's going to burn Naturalize from your deck and whatnot. So it's a very difficult card to justify unless it's in a pinch and needs to find exactly Hadronox.
It's a really good analysis, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing here from Conrad, weighing the options of his Army of the Dead versus just developing dragons.
Yeah, I mean, Primordial Drake's looking pretty good here as well. And I think that's probably the direction to go. The having double Spellstone for Conrad sometimes means he gets to pop his egg. I'm sorry, his cube, instead of, having to hope that it survives for a turn and trading into something. So that can be a little bit of a deal. So I think I like the Primordial Drake. It's not as strong on board, but I think it gets the job done. Oh, boy. It's a lot of juice.
Yeah, no more standard chain ganks to copy, but PlanetHunter does have a pretty good hand right now. I'd say that he's perfectly fine to clear everything.
Yeah. Hexing on Lich King, too, is like that's one of the ideal hexes for PlanetHunter, as Lich King is the largest hitting taunt that comes back for Conrad, so not having it in the pool for Hadronox anymore is typically a very big deal.
Interesting. I was first thinking about Acolyte and Volcano. You just draw really deep in your deck because I am afraid of that Death Grip, but I guess since your opponent had not really played that Lich King card, you'd be okay. You'd probably think it's not Death Grip.
Yeah, I would tend to say at this point it's not Death Grip. Okay. I think that Conrad is much more apt to leave a 2-1 around than he is to forego the Death Grip, which can be an almost instantaneous win.
Right. And Volcano's not very good against Taunt Druid. There's just so much health a lot of times. So I felt like that was a good opportunity to use it. PlanetHunter clearly disagrees and wants to get a little bit... Oh, he did go with the Acolyte this turn.
So what I'm thinking is with Volcano, because it's a 2-cost one, you actually can get a triple Volcano turn with Electra. If he picks up a second Volcano and Electra, he can deal 45 to an entire board. And that actually can be a factor for clearing off enough so that you don't tie to Branching Pass. The boards that Conrad's going to bring back sometimes are massive. And so if it's as desperate as you need to save Volcano for turns like that, so be it. The damage right now is fairly nominal.
Well, what the sad thing, the sick thing is, I was saying sad on behalf of PlanetHunter. 45 damage is still sometimes not enough.
Right. It's 45 is a reach. Like you're hoping that's enough to live through Branching Pass.
It's because the average board size, assuming 7 taunts come back, is 6 and a little bit cut over 6 health, which is basically an Ironwood Golem. But the board's not going to be full of Ironwood Golems. It's going to have Lich King. It's going to have a Sleepy Dragon. It's going to drag that average pretty high.
Yeah. So Lich King got hexed. There's another hex that he can toss in there as well. So like the hexes,
the hexes
can certainly drag down that average quite a bit as well.
Okay, in that case, then that's perfectly reasonable. But that's still like 2 other cards he has to draw, and his opponent would have to have the Hadronox. They clearly haven't shown at this point.
Yeah. To me, it's just such a rare thing that ever occurs. It's like, I don't think I've ever seen a triple Volcano turn.
I don't think I've seen it. I don't think I've seen the need for it before either.
Yeah, I just, well, no, I've seen the need for it. I just, I've never seen the existence of it.
I haven't seen the need for it. I've seen like, Lightning Storm, Electra, Volcano, and that's perfectly fine.
Look, I have been leveled up a number of times on 7-dude boards, okay?
Well, that's the thing, though. Like, you don't, like, okay. I get what you're saying.
You typically just don't have that liberty.
And I guess PlanetHunter doesn't want to overdraw either at this point.
Yeah, I am a bit surprised that the Acolyte didn't get attacked, but Conrad, the nature of the matchup is I think those are the kinds of risks that he often needs to take. He's got to, with Branching Pass and Swipe, pushing here is pretty real. I mean, it's 18 plus 4 from the Swipe plus 1 from the Hero Power. If This is too softly played.
Yeah, he's very close to death.
Whoa.
He's at 23? That is a knife's edge if I've ever seen one.
Wow.
But another branching pass?
Yeah, second pass would do it. And Oakheart, not the greatest right now.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you're flipping on drawing the Hadronox on the board, and the Hadronox on the board right now threatens to get hexed. But if your opponent's hexing, maybe your board's so large that you don't really care that much about it. Like, I'm curious if there's a force play here for Conrad by using Master Oakheart. You just get so much stuff on board that the branching pass represents a lot of damage.
It doesn't pull out a 2 because both Dragon Hatchers have been drawn, and Dragon Hatchers won't pull out anything else. So you pull out... No, it's either going to pull out Hadronox or an Ironwood Goleman, and then
Does he have a
Trog.
1? Yeah, Trog Gloomy. That's going to be the one I'm looking for right now. No Trog Gloomy Eater in the deck.
So it's pretty much going to pull out either Ironwood Golem or the
yeah.
Hadronox.
I'm just thinking if he pulls out the Hadronox, is it a force play enough that you get to push through? And I'm thinking it's not, just because of the way that the attack from your opponent's board is lining up. Army of the Undead summons nothing. Burns a swipe away. He's going in. Honestly, that Army of the Dead, the Army of the Dead worked out pretty darn well because swipe was the only relevant card in the burn, I think.
Yeah, I guess so. But it whiffed 4 mana. And Swipe is fairly relevant in this position. But
So, I mean, swipe is the relevant card.
But Healing Rain is also existing too. I don't know. I get where the logic is, like in terms of trying to go for Army of the Dead to summon the best possible board for this branching paths.
I think the idea there was to get the branching pass resolved with the Hadronox in play. So that way, if your opponent, or just any minion rather, but you know, if the Hadronox is there, it's got to be hexed from PlanetHunter, and there's only 2 trades available after that, and then 6 mana to go. So, you know, maybe there's a timing push in there. You know, maybe he's so desperate he's just got to get that lucky. I don't mind it that much.
I mean, your opponent would have Hex and Volcano or Lightning Storm Hex, and everything would be clear. I get what you're saying. Like, it's a bad scenario, so you have to take a risk in order to get a chance to to win this game. That's normally a bad matchup. But that felt, well, that just was not very successful at all.
Does it get the Dan stamp of a bit too much?
I don't usually care about things being too much. I'm just sad for Conrad because that just looks so pitiful.
Yeah, and so PlanetHunter, you know, this is a pretty major reaction to that happening as well.
He takes it very seriously, which I think is a good move here. And took a lot of resources as well. I mean, Conrad just saw PlanetHunter dump half his hand.
Yeah, Conrad needs to find the other naturalized too, so that, you know, when Hadronox is going to show up, he's got the naturalized ready, so he can pop it and just get a big board of taunts. Like,
I'm trying to find the light at the end of the tunnel. I just think it has to come down to hoping your opponent doesn't have the second hex.
it's also just, you know, Shutterwalk being very deep into the deck. Like, I think it's going to be tough for PlanetHunter to outright clear all the rest of the minions. Uh-oh.
Yep, and that X will pretty much seal it.
That might shut it down now.
But I think this is a completely appropriate risk, given that Conrad's like looking at his hands saying, how do I win? And it's very difficult to win if your opponent had the second hex from the get-go.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, I feel like Sleepy Dragon just had to be enough there.
His opponent's already played the equivalent of like 4 Life Drinkers and 3 Serenite Chain Gangs and a Grumble and a Zola. And so the moment his opponent plays Shutterwalk, he's 100% locked out of the game. In his mind. Because even if it whiffs, it's just going to summon so many big minions. And also, he just can't really counterplay against it. There's a second branching path. I don't blame him for that Hail Mary attempt. It was looking bleak.
Yeah, I don't blame him for it. You know, I think it's akin to the Army of the Dead. I think it's just a reasonable play. You know, but to your point earlier on the Army of the Dead, is there just something better to do? And
yeah. Well, I advocated for like either the branching paths or just the sleepy dragon the previous time, where you play Army of the Dead, because it kind of is accomplishing what he's trying to do, which is push and develop, force his opponent to react. But I think that's what ends up costing him in this position. But it was a tough matchup from the get-go. You know, it's not like I feel too much influence could have changed the course of what ended up bringing us here.
Yeah, I still feel like I would like to see the Hagenox held. Yeah, now you're just missing the one piece. You're missing a naturalize to have a major board advantage.
But look at this now. PlanetHunter has 2 cards now. Best he can do is set up a 5/5, which is pretty solid.
And the best you can do is suicide some minions into it.
It's true. But had Conrad pulled out Ironwood Golem instead, though, maybe it would have been a different issue.
That's the other thing, too, though, is, you know, if Master Ro8 gets the Ironwood Golem, that play looks way better on the other side of things. So, honestly, like a 50-50 to have, like, a not-so-disadvantageous position, I think is a fine risk to take. Just a tough matchup, and you're going to have to take risks that oftentimes look worse than they actually are.
Oh, man. I think Conrad needs to just extend out to the board as best he can. He has branching paths to push in the aggression. So Carnivorous Cube and Ironwood Golem. In that order.
You can also, I mean, you can Witching Hour the frogs, and, you know, the frogs represent branching path damage. Like, that's not an unreasonable thing. Like,
you're right,
if your opponent's going to clear your Carnivorous Cube, but that means you get 2 0-1 frogs, and the 0-1 frogs can represent 2 damage apiece with branching paths.
Oh, if he cubes this is going to be it. Oh my gosh,
boy.
the punish is going to be so severe. Pivots, needs to do it quickly.
That second branching pass, I don't think damage is ever getting there now.
Yeah, I don't know about this one, man.
You know, everything at this stage is going to look, you know, quite poor, and just that's the nature of it. Risk got punished.
The thing is, too, PlanetHunter, the window here is just, it's been elongated for so long. Like, his Shudderwalk is at the very bottom of his deck. So there was time for the Taunt Druid. And that's, like, the sad thing, too, because when you, it's kind of like the damned if you do, damned if you don't. Conrad either takes the risk because he says, this is a bad matchup, I have to get aggressive, this is my chance to open now, or he says, maybe my only hope is to hope that he gets unlucky by having his Shudderwalk be in the bottom and then try to pressure based off that one timing window that I saw. And I can see cases for both. And unfortunately, his impatience has costed him pretty big because he's got nothing.
You know, the way that you said that, I want to see analysis segments where you criticize all lines of player has, and it's called damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I like it.
DANNED.
Yeah, I like it. I'll submit that idea to TJ. See what he thinks. Carnivorous Cube coming down. And PlanetHunter, just a couple of cards remaining. There we go. And no matter what, this should be the end of the game because
no defense for Conrad.
Yeah,
even if the Shudderwalk like fails to return, that just means there's a ton of Shudderwalks in play.
Yeah, there's a bunch of 8/8 Shudderwalks, which is honestly not even that bad of a scenario.
Yeah.
So that should wrap it up here, and that also bouncing back to the hand is a guarantee on PlanetHunter's side.
So that means Malagos Druid is the last deck for PlanetHunter versus the Taunt Druid and the Death Rattle Hunter. For Conrad. So I don't think this one's quite over yet. I think that Taunt Druid can do a pretty good job against Malagos Druid at times. The problem is, Malagos Druid can go at the same speed that you can in terms of powering things out. And so, a lot of times if they both have ideal hands, I think the advantage is more towards PlanetHunter side. But there are some, ramp into Master Ro8 turns that PlanetHunter's not going to be able to handle, and the Death Rattle Hunter matchup is just going to be a tough one for PlanetHunter. So Conrad says, well, let's get the tough one over with first. Bad news, then good news.
Bad news and then the slightly better news.
Yeah. I'm a bad news first kind of person.
Yeah?
Yeah. I feel like the bad news first makes the good news better. So, like, for instance, if I said, congratulations, Dan, you won $100, but you got a flat tire. You go, oh, man, I lost $100. But if I go, Dan, you got a flat tire. You go, oh, and I go, but congratulations, you won $100. You go, Wow, I get to pay for part of that flat tire.
I guess. It just feels so risky because, you know, when you start off something bad, it might just ruin the effect of feeling good.
Yeah, but the effect of feeling good is definitely ruined by the effect of feeling bad. It's a risk.
So it's the same.
No. If it's good news second, there's a chance they feel good.
Gotcha. All right.
So, like, for instance,
you got me.
the good news, your opponent, or I'm sorry, the bad news, your opponent had Wild Growth. The good news, they didn't Oaken Summons. They just played an Ironwood.
No, the good news is that you also had Wild Growth.
Double good news, yeah.
No. The bad news is that they had Wild Growth. The good news is that you had Wild Growth.
There you go. Feels a lot better that way.
I suppose so. I just want good news, period.
Well, you can't always get what you
Nothing
want,
else.
Dan. Mick Jagger's been telling us this for years.
Let's see.
It's looking like a Nourish turn to me.
I like the idea of Nourish. I like the idea of maybe even just taking your time. Like, saving the coin does have its uses in this deck. Yeah, it gives you a lot of flexibility to utilize, say, Dream Petal Floors a turn earlier. Actually, it doesn't matter because you coin into the Dream Petal Floors. You're right. Because the Florist wants to just hit the Malagos, right?
Yeah, the Mind Control tech in hand might be what's discouraging PlanetHunter from that.
Yeah.
You know, Mind Control tech can't have a use in this matchup. It's pretty tough overall for that to happen, though.
It's not very reliable.
Yeah, it's pretty unrealistic.
If your opponent has a board of Ironwood Golems, it's more likely to steal that than the Hadronox or the Cube, whatever you end up trying to snipe.
Ooh. That's a very important draw. So now that's ramping to 7. You go into 8. You can coin Alexstrasza. In that way. You know, Conrad does not have a natural way to restore life in the deck other than armor. And so that's just pure, raw 15 damage. Alexstrasza is so good in these styles of matchups.
After he played both Ironwood Golems, draw Oaken Summons. I think Conrad's maybe even contemplating if he wants to just gain armor to start attacking with these 3/6s. Definitely considering that a possibility of wanting to pressure the Malagos Druid.
He's just so weak.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be able to Oaken Summons next turn when your hand's looking fairly dead. Oh boy. This Alexstrasza is some good.
Conrad just kind of chuckling to himself. And this is the fastest that PlanetHunter's been playing.
Right. You know, it's starting to, you know, feel special. Oh.
Well,
I guess the armor's not unwelcome right now.
The bad news is you drew Ironwood Golems before Oaken Summons. The good news is you have a double Spellstones to pair with it.
Yeah. The bad news is they had Alexstrasza. The good news is you can restore some of that life. Naturalize here on the Alex means that the second armor gain plus double Spellstone would be enough to handle a Malagos should it come down.
And now the Ironwood Golems can attack. Silver lining.
Bad news first, Dan.
Bad news first. You got to cast with the Admirable.
Oh, come
Good
on.
news, you get to hang out with Admirable after you.
Yeah. Oh. It's both of these feel bad.
What?
You're telling me that my work is terrible.
No, I'm telling you that hanging out with you is great. That's the good news. It's supposed to make you feel better. I ordered it the way you asked me to.
Now how about...
Oh, gosh. Every single time PlanetHunter wants to drop this Florist, it just something else keeps coming on the right side of the hand. It was first the MC Tech, then the Alexstrasza, then the Flavinus Floop. For the record, I really enjoy casting with you.
Oh, thanks, Dan.
Let's see.
In case there was worried. And there's no bad news.
The bad news is my friends make fun of me.
No.
The good news
The
is
good
my friends are
news-
Ro8.
Time goes short.
Now, Fury the Pestilent just snipes down one of the Ironwood Golems to see attack. It just feels
Poisons.
good. You want to set it up. It makes Plague of the Will Tree that much better.
Yeah, poisons here are, you know, they kind of feel, you know, rough when your opponent has Primordial Drake, and so PlanetHunter's going to avoid that. With such a strong hand, you know, PlanetHunter's feeling life total is just superior in every measure of the way. I don't disagree.
Yeah, and the Scarabs also allow him to use Plague of the Will Tree to clear and maybe start gaining some armor, so that way Twig can basically offset the fact that Dream Petal Florist is in an awkward spot. Meanwhile, in Conrad, his hand is once again just going 2 by 2. He just played a naturalized, draw another naturalized. He had one Ironwood Golem, draw another Ironwood Golem.
Yeah, you know, half a branching pass, still looking okay. You have Dragon Hatch on the following turn, but you know, he really wants to see Okart stacked.
What if?
With each pass and turn, is looking more to me like a PlanetHunter victory. He has the tools that he's assembling, and he has a very clear game plan with the cards that he is holding. Conrad, I don't even know how he gets there.
Let's draw the right cards. You know, PlanetHunter at the bottom of the deck is all the burn spells.
Yeah, that is something to account for. So Taunt Druid is the modern version of Ramp Druid, just in terms of the pure form, which is play a bunch of heavy stuff and then
Keep playing heavy
heavy stuff. And usually you play one big thing per turn, but oftentimes O-card and whatnot and Hadronox can help you cheat that way. But Ramp Druid historically has always had the problem of exactly this, which is just sometimes you don't have anything meaningful to do because you don't have the mana to play something big yet, but yet you don't have anything proactive to do even if your opponent gives you that time. Because your mid-game is very weird.
Yeah, discounts the Florist instead. But Florist right now, you know, this is the perfect turn to play it because Conrad, you know, wants to play the big 9s here. And so for PlanetHunter, he goes, well, if you want to play a 9, I get a second try at Florist. If you don't want to kill a Florist, it means you're not playing a big 9. Perfect. This is a perfect example of how to disrupt your opponent in Hearthstone.
Yep.
You do not have direct interaction on your opponent's turn, but you can place board objectives that, you know, force your opponent to make real impactful decisions.
And it's such a important decision too, because Conrad could get big, like a huge punish if this ends up living and landing on the Malagos.
Let's see.
But Conrad, how long is it going to really take to get set up?
You know, the benefit is that if he's going to kill the Florist this turn, he drew Nourish to, you know, fuel the hand a bit. But
It's true.
you know, Okart is the prime to draw. That's the one he really needs to get. So there is a chance, I think, that there's a chance that Branching Pass is used for draw here anyway, because, you know, you just don't feel like Dragon Hatcher's enough.
Oh my. Oh my. That is a lot of respect.
I like this.
He is afraid of dying.
I think this is really smart. I think that, you know, the armor amount that he's gained, it really puts a lot of pressure on PlanetHunter to combo not only at the right time, but to have the maximum amount of damage to get it done. And since the Dream Petal Florist failed to hit the Malagos, and Twig is nowhere near getting complete at this point, that means that Conrad, I think, bought himself a lot of time with this play.
Well, if Twig starts working now, or hacking it now,
Your opponent starts taking a, you know, pretty sizable amount of damage from hacking away at taunts as well.
yeah, it's true. Taunt Druid is problematic for the Twig of the Will Tree because you have to usually attack into big minions.
Now, that being said, PlanetHunter does have 2 branching paths to back that up, but, you know, the mana wants to be spent furthering the game plan. It doesn't want to be spent, you know, playing defense in a matchup where, you know, Conrad's turns of offense are going to be explosive style of turns.
For that reason alone, it might be worth keeping that Ironwood Golem around just so you're attacking a much smaller minion as opposed to Sleepy Dragons. You know, 4 might seem that big of a difference to 3, but the 8 damage adds up over time.
Yeah. The one real benefit to, you know, doing it this way and then having the branching pass afterwards is that you do need to make hand space as well. If you're going to draw cards with Ultimate Infestation or Nourish, getting cards out of your hand is important. And so rather than take the armor, just going to draw now and say, wow, he's gained a lot of armor and he's clearly setting something up. I guess I'll start looking for the burn.
Big Dragon number 1, PlanetHunter has double Ultimate Infestation. Those are awkward cards to be drawing right now.
Yeah, I mean, this, you know, the closer that PlanetHunter gets to you know, having lots of burn in hand too, the tougher it is to use an Ultimate Infestation.
Yeah, and I think this is that punish for what PlanetHunter was doing with drawing the cards, you know? Like we're talking about, needs to be swinging a lot. Doesn't really have as much life as he'd like to. Had he gained at least a little bit of life, it makes swinging into this Promoter Drake a lot easier to swallow.
Yeah, you know, the only real benefit of Ultimate Infestation at this point, I would say, is that if PlanetHunter gets to, you know, a big Twig turn, you're able to play Malagos, sling some Moonfires, activate the Twig, and then sling a big Ultimate Infestation. Sometimes just enough burn to get it done. But it's looking pretty far off right now. And Dragon Hatcher is like supremo threatening at this point. This is typically the one minion that you're okay with using a swipe on in this matchup.
Well, Naturalize allows PlanetHunter to kill the Dragon Hatcher anyways.
Keep the swipe. Aeronox get drawn.
He's going to utilize an extra card. His branching paths for armor most likely here. No attack with the Scarab. I wonder if that 1 damage might matter. Low chance, but you never know. Hadronox with Naturalize and Carnivorous Cubes with Witching Hours. This is the taunt train. And that Naturalize has basically given Conrad a new shot in the arm, and that's going to be enough to at least launch an offensive.
Yeah, it does give PlanetHunter a couple cards, but you're racing down a Twig. Right now the cards are less relevant, I'd say, than having an offensive game plan. So, what a rush. Here we go.
What a rush, dude.
Just taunting up a storm.
Yeah, a storm. It's a great description of this board state. For some reason, I was expecting a little bit more, but it's because it just goes to show you how middling Conrad's hand has been this game.
Yeah, it's 2 Ironwood Golems and then 2 Oaken Summons. That's the opposite of how you intend that to work.
Bad news ain't good news. No, actually, it was bad news and then more bad news, followed by slightly less bad news.
Followed by moderate news.
What does PlanetHunter need to do here in this spot then? First, we need to keep whacking away with the Twig.
Yeah, work towards the Twig. Like, at this point, I'm curious if Dream Petal Florist actually is the play from this perspective, because you could discount the Malagos and sling 2 swipes plus the Ultimate Infestation, but I think it's less damage to do it that way than if you play Malagos, activate the Twig, and then play the Flute Malagos. But you only get 1 swipe that way, so I could quick math it, but I'm just not going to. I guess I will. It's pretty slow right now.
Yeah. PlanetHunter missing out on an additional Scarab. Could have attacked with one of the Scarabs and summoned a fresh one at 1/5. A little confused as to why, but I don't think it's that impactful right now. What really matters is the 6 health on minions, because Malagos will offer swipes with 6 damage.
Okay, so in the instance of playing the Dream Petal Florist and discounting the Malagos first, you get 2 swipes, a Moonfire, and an Ultimate Infestation for a total of 34 damage.
Okay.
If you have a second Moonfire in there, it becomes 40. If you floop the Malagos instead, it has to be post-Twig, which means that you have plus 10 spell damage, and you've used 4 of your mana of the 10 remaining. So you get 1 swipe and 2 Moonfires for a total of 36 damage with both Moonfires in one of the swipes. So there's merits to both sides. If you draw a second Moonfire, I think it's a little bit different. There's only 1 copy of Innervate in the deck, so he can't have like a double Innervate turn with swipes to get it done. So I think that the Dream Petal Florist actually might be superior, and then it's the timing of it that would matter.
Huh. Well. Hashtag they did the math. Nicely done. So it's actually better for PlanetHunter to guarantee
Yeah,
it.
and I was just about to say the punish for waiting on the Dream Petal Florist would be the times that you draw Arcane Tyrant.
Right.
So, he can just play the Arcane Tyrant here. There's not really much of a downside to it.
You can make room for it. You can Florist first, then Innervate, and then draw for cards with Nourish, and then play the Arcane Tyrant.
Yeah.
So you can get close to that double Moonfire. Because your opponent is at 40, which is fairly important.
Yeah, I don't believe there's any more minions left to draw. Mind Control Tech has been used. There'd be 1 more Tyrant, but if you draw the Tyrant, you're fine. You get to play it.
Death is eternal.
It's a pretty complicated turn that PlanetHunter's got in front of them, because you're not just trying to calculate this math and balance it out. You're thinking about game plan execution here as well. Like,
yeah,
what are the implications of your opponent's branching paths? What happens if they just slam a Lich King? Like, what happens if they do this, they do that? And if you play the Tyrant first, it swaps the Floop over. Like,
Ends up going with a pretty simple play, I think, because maybe there's just too much for PlanetHunter to calculate at the moment.
Now, the other thing, too, is if you just play Malagos, sometimes it lives. And if it lives, you have a major turn.
You just win.
Yeah, like it's so hard to lose if the Malagos ever just sticks to the board. I just think that Conrad has enough pressure that that's not a realistic facet.
Yeah.
That was another thing, too. Conrad had an opportunity to kill his Hadronox with a Carnivorous Cube and set up a bigger, wide board with the 4 Ironwood Golems and the 2 Primordial Drakes.
Yeah, in this spot, he does get to attack it and then Spellstone his own Hadronox, and then he has Witching Hour Cube on the follow-up to it. I think that could have been part of the thought. The timing of the pressure
It's true.
really matters, but you do want to have a Hadronox in play. Like if you have a Cube Hadronox in play, it's really tough to get Malagos down, and his life total is fairly protected.
So now,
Conrad's looking good, honestly.
I mean, he's looking good, but that... okay. Because I was like, if you're going to go for the Spellstone, wouldn't you want to Sleepy Dragon 2 in tandem with it so you can get a 4/12 on the board?
Yeah, so if he chooses to draw a card there, he's going to cube. And the cube benefit is, again, you end up with Hadronox in play versus Malagos.
Right.
When they have the Malagos swipe turn.
Okay. That makes sense, too.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I miscalculated something here. So the Malagos plus the Twig plus the Innervate allows him to play a 4-mana Malagos and then have 6 mana. No, it doesn't work that way. He has 6 mana on the up to 7. I don't really know if PlanetHunter ever wins from here, actually. I think he might be mathematically out of this game. He just doesn't have the damage to close.
But even if he doesn't have the damage to close, couldn't he just, like, Ultimate Station for the win if he gets his opponent down to, like, a significantly low life?
Well, right now, Malagos double Moonfire with 2 Malagos in play represents 36 damage. That's like the armor total.
Yeah, that's also partially why I wanted to draw with the Nerve to get the other Moonfire. All right, let's see. So...
And your opponent's going to have Hadronox in play, so if you double swipe, they get another full board taunts.
Yeah, but I think PlanetHunter is thinking that he's going to snap this Twig, which that attack is also somewhat suspect because you just took an extra damage for no reason. Oh, the extra damage from the Arcane Tyrant. He can't attack again because he just attacked with a Twig. This has been a really sloppy game for PlanetHunter,
Yeah,
to say the least.
this was, in my opinion, this was just a poorly executed Malagos Druid game.
Yeah.
But
it's a hard deck. I mean, a lot of people kind of associate Malagos because it's been played for so many months now that people feel like, it's an easy deck to play. That's not necessarily the case. There's still a lot of weird game states that you always find yourself.
the elite professionals that you watch play this deck have played 1,000 games with it in the last 4 months. They know so many iterations, and they're way on top of everything that's happening here. For PlanetHunter, coming into this tournament, his prior attempt at HCT was a 3-2 run in the qualifiers for HCT Sydney. That's really where it's at in terms of his tournament performance right now. So being at this deep in the tournament on this stage, this is one of the first times he's been in this position.
Yeah, and I mean, he's trying to keep it together, but
it's tough.
He's completely locked out of this game right now, I feel, and I don't know of an alternative win possibility for him.
It's not there. And, we always ask players at championships, we get to sit down and interview the players prior to their week of play. Every single one of them who has not been to a championship before always talks about the nerves that they're feeling prior to the tournament. They always, when we ask them how are you going to feel about the crowd being there, they go, I'm trying to not even think about that. I'm not focusing on it. I'm just going to try to focus on the game of play.
And Hearthstone's one of those games where, like, because of it, the game can drag on for a long time, or the series can drag on for a long time, and those mental wear and tear eventually gets to you. In other games, you look at StarCraft, you mess up, the game's like over at that moment, and you're just like whatever. But in Hearthstone, you sometimes have to just keep playing it for the 1% chance, and it's just like excruciating to just sit and bathe in your mistakes.
Yeah, there is still a bit of a chance here.
No,
Naturalize.
Oh,
Naturalize pushes some damage.
Okay, I stand corrected. You're right. The hold onto the Naturalize.
So the Naturalize pushes 5. Conrad's going to go up to 6, and that's Ultimate Infestation Moonfire next turn. So Conrad needs armor, actually, to win the game here.
Oh my gosh, maybe we spoke way too soon. Seriously? We have Nourish.
Wow. I mean, the Hadronoxes...
He can draw. No, this should be 100% solvable too for Conrad because he should know what's remaining in his opponent's deck. He should know that UI. Oh wait, but what UI make him overdraw? How much damage is he gonna take? He's gonna take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
The first block of them is 15 damage.
Right.
And then plus 6 is 21. That's not armor. And I believe there was 1 Ferocious Howl. There's 2 Ferocious Howls in the deck. But has he used both of them? That's something I have not been tracking. I mean, if he does not... If he doesn't draw cards, you don't even have to Ultimate Infestation. It's just a Moonfire plus the swipe if you don't get the Hero Power. So Hero Power gets in.
Yeah.
Full board of taunts.
So he takes 2 damage, so he goes down to 20, and then...
Oh, it's right. He's not going to 2 fatigue.
He's actually going to tie.
Is this a draw? This is a draw. Are you kidding?
This is a draw. I'm impressed. The fact that PlanetHunter
23 damage that he takes from the Ultimate
I'm
Infestation.
impressed that he's able to even make this a tie. We are going to go once again to Game 4, unless we're mistaken on the fatigue.
No, it's 23 points of damage.
No, but you gained the armor. Did we count the armor?
Armor happens second, doesn't it? Yeah, armor happens
It's
after.
a tie.
Wow, this is like a Hearthstone supernova. Like, they happen somewhere in the universe all the time, but you don't see them that often. Holy smokes, Dan. We're going back to Game 4. The rules here for HCT is if a game is a draw, it is you queue up the exact same deck. It's mandatory to replay the exact same game. And now, mind you, that was with Conrad having a fairly abysmal opener. Like I'd say one of the weakest playable openers that he's going to get was the one that he had.
Yeah.
And so if players had learned anything in that game, they get a chance to apply it now. Like, this is crazy how rare this is and how much implication it has.
I'm a little bit hard spoken for words right now.
That was with the wild growth into Coin Nourish into Alex Straza from PlanetHunter as well. Like it's quite rare that you get that exact same draw as well again. So after seeing that game, I think Conrad may have some plans here on how to approach it and get a better opportunity than the one he had in the previous game. This is nuts.
Oh my goodness!
Gosh!
Once again,
Double Moonfire in the opener, though. That's it's a bad and a good thing. Like, it's bad because it's 2 Moonfires, but you start to get planning out your damage.
Yeah.
Pretty straight away.
I like it. Bad news, good news.
Yeah. Bad news first, Dan. The bad news is, it's match point for PlanetHunter. The good news is Conrad didn't lose last game.
That's 2 different things. That's bad news and bad news for Conrad. It's a matchup that he should be favored in, but things haven't worked out in the previous game, but we'll see if it goes differently this time around.
Oh, boy.
Oh. Coin,
oh boy.
Nourish, Arcane Tyrant. What if it ties again, Admirable?
Well, then it ties again. If it ties, it ties.
If it ties, he ties.
Shout out to Creed 2.
Did you watch Creed 2?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I went and watched
Apparently, I read that some people were so inspired by Creed 2 that they drove all the way to Philadelphia to run up the Rocky Steps.
That's here. It's one of the things that...
Very thematic, if you will. Something that probably we should have done, but then we realized that we play Hearthstone. We do not exert ourselves in physical athletics.
I told Jace earlier, sunshine and weather is not going to stop me from playing video games.
We engage in the athletics of the cyber nature.
Yeah. Hearthstone's very much mental gymnastics.
I was just thinking that. Yes, I was just thinking about some way to incorporate the term mental gymnastics. And it's so true. God, you're on fire today. I'm not even going to say another word.
It's the rush from naturalizing Hadronoxes. I can't help it.
I don't even know what to say because I'm speechless half the time based off what I just saw, and you just summarized it perfectly.
It's a very different looking game, though. Conrad, much more solid opener.
He has stuff to do.
A
That's
mix
the
of
reason
tools.
why.
Like, turn 8 isn't completely dead.
Yeah, I mean, heck, it's not even unreasonable to just drop stuff on curve and pressure your opponent. PlanetHunter has way more mana crystals, but he's lacking on the substance.
Yeah,
maybe he's going to go digging.
The turn 7 here for Conrad, that's the one I'm most worried about right now, because PlanetHunter, if he finds Ultimate Infestation off this draw, really easy. If it's off this draw, you get a 2-turn plan to launch it. And so now Wild Growth's looking like it wants to stick in hand, because if you draw Ultimate Infestation, you know, you're going to have to hand up anyway. And then number 2 is, if you draw 2 bad cards in a row, you really need to draw that extra card with Wild Growth.
That's right.
One of the things to note for Conrad for me is that Branching Pass 1 is down for armor usage. So, you know, armor was clearly a major facet of Conrad winning last game.
Yeah. No, that was that move for branching pass for armor that you were pointing out was fairly brilliant from Conrad. PlanetHunter going for the Wild Growth anyways. So I think it kind of works as a win-win either way. So either he draws Ultimate Infestation. Actually, no, holding is the win-win. Because then if he draws Ultimate Infestation anyways, he just uses it on 9.
So the thing I'm thinking is, if you do want to get cards out of your hand as well. So like if he draws Ultimate Infestation, that Wild Growth oftentimes is going to be stuck. Like that, it's going to be taking up a card slot. And you already have 2 Moonfires and a Floop doing that. So I don't mind the Wild Growth here, because, you know, at a certain point you are going to have to take risks and just play to your outs. And right now his hand's not looking fantastic. And so, you know, do you need to, if you delay one more turn on having a big turn, you know, that's going to hurt. And so I'm thinking, like, you're able to play Alexstrasza if you draw it. You're able to play Malfurion if you draw it. And you're just not really too worried about how it pans out, because those are costly cards and it's going to delay your hand up as it is.
Okay, I can buy it for Alexstrasza, but the reason why I point out is because you could still play, if you draw an Ultimate Infestation next turn, you can still play the Wild Growth and a Malfurion, for example, and now I just dumped it for free space.
I don't mind hanging on to the Wild Growth either. My point is that I can see both sides of it. I think that, you know, both sides of it are okay, I think. Yeah, and for Conrad, I mean, this turn 8 and 9 is looking so good. PlanetHunter, if he doesn't pick up anything good, this is going to be a really tough game. So now you look at that Wild Growth, and you go, oh, maybe I should have had it. You know, but say this was a Nourish instead this turn.
Let's see.
This is not looking good. And PlanetHunter is now on the opposite side of what Conrad was facing the previous game, with not a lot of substance to play. Okay reactive cards.
And so PlanetHunter, you know, with the mind control tech, he's clearly anticipating that, you know, he could run into a bad spot. If and when Master Ro8 comes out this game, you need that chance for mind control tech to flip it around. So I'm curious if that means that Conrad ever delays the mind control tech. I'm sorry, delays the Master Ro8 so that if he finds Hadronox, he can just naturalize right away. And I think with picking up Frostmourne, you definitely could make that justification.
It's just really powerful as an option for even pushing damage. Frostmourne for 15 is often just good enough to help you get across the finish line.
Yeah, you're okay with delaying your total output in terms of, you know, maximum development in favor of not losing to mind control tech sometimes. You know, a card that you could clearly put PlanetHunter on having with all these cards from the opening game.
Such a ragtag team of attackers here for PlanetHunter. I was wondering if he was even just going to invest in the Arcane Tyrant number 2, but now Master Ro8 hits the board.
Yeah, and so this is that chance. But
okay, no Hadronox.
Yeah, finding the Oaken, the Ironwood Golem here, I think, you know, a blessing in disguise for Conrad. Big steal. No dragons in his deck, but well, there are dragons in his deck. There's Malagos and there's Alexstrasza.
You're right. He's gonna steal the. He's gonna steal the Dragon Hunter.
Well, that could be bad. If he summons the Malagos, Conrad gets to kill it right away.
But if he summons the Alexstrasza, then it's still just a big 8/8 minion.
Yeah, the Alexstrasza is a great pull. The Malagos is dangerous to get pulled. The big benefit that PlanetHunter gets from the Malagos hitting is that he's got a big board right now. But has he used both branching pass?
PlanetHunter? He's used one, that's for sure.
So damage this game's getting crazy.
Does he attack into the 3/6 and weaken his board to a Primordial Drake?
Oh
Hold.
boy.
Alex Straza!
That is very significant because Conrad feels it necessary to take care of Alex Straza, but there's very little punish from having this Alex Straza not in deck at this point.
Man.
You know, there's enough damage here to chip away down to 15. He did not need that battle cry this game.
In this case, Alex Straza landed life.
Yeah, I mean,
Instead of death.
Honestly, if that's Malagos, that is disaster
Oh,
in
yeah.
PlanetHunter spot.
Completely ready for it with the Naturalize. And also, on the flip side, you know, Conrad probably now does wish that his Lich King got pulled out, or his Hadronox would get pulled out, so they can revive Lich King and whatnot, and fight back board against board. So it's just like funny how that works out.
Yeah.
Blessing in disguise. Turns out it was just a curse. Clearing off as much of the board.
Get some taunts in the way.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that. Oh, hang on.
Hang on. If you naturalize and then your opponent has Malagos, and you actually have no way to answer.
Oh
anymore.
yeah, like the not clearing off the Dragon Hatcher is the smart play here. Like you want your opponent to get no. Oh goodness, you want your opponent to get the Malagos out of deck, and then you murder the Malagos so they can't do this nonsense.
Very vivid imagery. Naturalize. How much damage is this?
Well, Naturalize
How
swipe.
much damage is this?
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I count 16 being pushed with Naturalize, swipe, and a clear onto one of the golems, but that's wrong because he could push more efficiently than that. So 14, I'm seeing 16 available as a push. Nope, I didn't account for one of the golems.
8, 10, 16, 17,
11.
18, 19, 20? Am I counting this right or wrong? Oh no, he doesn't. Why would I think he had double swipe? I'm an idiot.
We both skipped over the second Ironwood goal, or the third Ironwood golem rather.
No, for some reason I thought he had double swipe because then I was counting like the residual 1 damage to everything because he had double swipe.
I mean, PlanetHunter with a swipe down and with the Dragon Hatcher here, like there's an option to Moonfire your own Dragon Hatcher to preserve the Malagos in your deck, but you don't have any card draw in the deck, and then you're down 2 burn spells.
I think I take the risk because at least if Malagos goes down, then you still have the Naturalize that just draws your cards.
Boy.
And you can push 11 damage right now.
He is going in. There's a Ferocious Howl in hand there, too, though. I mean, this is a lot of return health that Conrad's going to get. It's a lot of damage being pushed. But PlanetHunter is about to get punished for this sequence, I think. So it's Howl for 10 extra health. You get a Naturalize on the Malagos. You have double Spellstone for the Alex Straza, and you have Frostmourne to pick things off. Now, that's not accounting for the fact that Conrad, with 10 extra health, could be up to some shenanigans with the Frostmourne. Like, you could be, taking Malagos, or you could be taking back the Dragon Hatcher in the scenario and trying to get more out of it. But there is so much counterplay here for Conrad that the Mind Control tech becomes a liability for PlanetHunter this game.
Just gains more armor.
Those cards are almost useless that PlanetHunter just drew. I mean, his entire combo deck has been shredded apart now.
There's actually nothing left, right, except for a Lich King? Does he even have one?
No, there's no Lich King in the deck. He opted to go for the double Ferocious Howl. Malfurion.
Okay.
That is some very welcome push potential.
That gives you a chance, although it's walking straight into the Primordial Drake.
That's the thing, is Conrad's, he cleared out the Mind Control tech for bigger minions, so he gets the Primordial Drake here, wipe out a Scarab, and then have a substantial defense on the back end. PlanetHunter, without drawing Ultimate Infestation, very soon is going to have 0 chance to win this game.
And the Frostmourne gets snapped. Frostmourne gets snapped.
Second Ferocious Howl drawn too.
I'm more concerned of whether or not PlanetHunter's just going to be dead in a couple turns based off of what's happening here. The Ferocious Howl is only going to be needed if PlanetHunter can assemble the damage from hand. Ultimate Infestation off the top! That's definitely what he needs. He's going face!
I just don't know how he breaks through. Like, I think he might have to draw
Swipe and Ultimate Infestation. That's how he's going to do it. He's almost out of cards.
But Conrad's going to get the armor.
Oh, you're right.
He doesn't have... PlanetHunter doesn't have any natural damage modification left.
Oh, he fight. Is that what it? Oh, I was like,
Yeah, he's drawing for more armor.
I like it. Ferocious Howl to gain more armor. Oaken summons branching paths. Okay. Let's lock it up, Admirable.
Yeah, and Naturalize actually starts the clock as well. I mean, Conrad, he can ignore any offensive measures and focus purely on mitigating damage from PlanetHunter. That's the best course of action.
Even armored up with his hero power just to have extra insurance.
Yeah, and with the knowledge of what PlanetHunter's got left, Conrad, I believe, is free to push this damage.
I'm out of cards.
And that, I think that's it. There's just no way to get through 19.
19 plus a wall of taunts plus more taunts in the future because we know that there's Carnivorous Cube waiting with Witching Hour.
I'm running out of cards.
He is not going to win the fatigue fight either.
Hadronox was the draw, too.
That'd be so interesting. I actually forgot that Hadronox had not been played. Imagine if that got burned.
Yeah, I mean, what a rush. Holy moly.
Yeah, that should do it. PlanetHunter can't even answer this immediate board. They can try to go deeper into fatigue, but he's even behind on like the armor count because his opponent has Oaken Summons and Branching Paths. And a Lich King, by the way. Death Grip is kind of useless, but so is PlanetHunter's entire hand. Oh, this time PlanetHunter probably can figure it out.
No draw.
Yeah.
No draw this game. Yep. Game 5 coming up.
Rest now.
Conrad gets the better
Wow.
after the draw happens. And so now, one remaining deck for Conrad.
What a game. What a series,
Yeah,
Admirable.
this has been like crazy. And this one I think is pretty massively favored for Conrad as well. It's Death Rattle Hunter taking on Mally Druid here to buy him that one extra turn perhaps, and then to get to that combo damage. But it's a very demanding style of matchup where oftentimes I have found Arcane Tyrants feel like they're necessary cards as well as ramp, as well as card draw.
And that's a good start, too, Prince Keliseth. What you're looking for as a Death Rattle Hunter for Planet... Sorry, for Death Rattle. Oh, man, this is going to be weird calling. Yeah, I just realized that PlanetHunter has a name Hunter, but has no Hunter in his lineup. Wow, now that's a hand.
Well,
I'm pretty sure those are the exact top 4 candidates that Reddit is crying out for nerfs and Druid. Exactly those 4 cards.
It's you know, this is the start of the beautiful win that Druid rarely picks up in this matchup.
What?
I think if PlanetHunter finds Arcane Tyrant in this situation, there is a very reasonable argument for him being favored. But spreading, Mossy Harbor is already found for Conrad as well.
That's a good card.
As Katharina.
What is
and
happening?
Arcane Tyrant gets found as well.
Watch him rip the egg right now. Oh, okay. You hear about it before we can find out, but... I mean, yeah, the Katharina is going to be a big MVP of this matchup, but it might not even get to that point if PlanetHunter just ramps to the skies.
Yeah, this is a stage where PlanetHunter needs to plan out how the rest of this hand is going to work as well, because I don't believe this is a coin Nourish turn. I believe the Nourish needs to be held for ramp so that he can coin Ultimate Infestation a turn earlier. It is very important that you get to that turn. And so that would just mean Spellstone and you poke for a damage. And as silly as it sounds, those points of damage really matter in this matchup.
It's okay. Your opponent just passed, so it feels like both of you have agreed to take it easy for a turn, but that favors you for having the ramp.
And the players are playing really fast right now, too. I mean,
I think the nerves.
Oh, my gosh. That is a huge draw. That is one of the most important draws at this stage with this kind of hand for PlanetHunter. That represents all the damage that would be necessary to chip away with in one card instead. And it's just, that's perfect. You can't get better than that, Dan.
What's the perfect draw right
Innervate for the back turn for PlanetHunter. But the perfect draw right back for Conrad, it's definitely Candle Shot.
I don't understand. The thing is, Conrad doesn't have enough time to get to his most powerful turns with Winter Wisp, excuse me. If PlanetHunter is going to keep pressing in here.
So now the best draw for Conrad in this spot is going to be Savannah Highmane. You just need a high-pressure minion in this situation to take care of stuff. It could be something different now, like Hunter's Mark, because your opponent has Alex Strasdu. Maybe even something crazy like, Rexar could be a good pickup. Or Defender of Argus to just buy extra time.
Yeah. You have to stop every hero power from coming to you. Because now, if you start getting within 12 life or less, your opponent can just kill you with a simple Malygos Moonfire combination. But I do want to point out one thing, is that this is starting to rack up a significant amount of damage. Druid's also crossing the halfway point. That's not that great of a draw in this position.
This is a very dead turn 2. Spreading Plague provides no defense because Conrad has Mossy Harbor ready. That's on the turn 7, which is like the weakest Hunter turn that takes place.
Supposedly. I mean, you have Mossy Horror right now.
This is major race that's going on right now. And the fact that PlanetHunter even has a chance in this situation is all because of the ramp into Alex Strasza with an ultimate to follow it up. Without that, he would have almost no chance to win this game.
Conrad not going to immediately rush into things, evaluating his plays, thinking about what he wants to do against Ultimate Station next turn. But the truth is, Ultimate Station doesn't have that many great targets. PlanetHunter, by hero pounding the face and setting up for the Malygos, doesn't set up the Houndmaster Shaw in a very nice way.
Yeah, that's really the question, too. Like, Defender of Argus pressures this down a lot and sets you up for Katharina with, more board development in the grand scheme of things. But I think pushing the damage is very relevant for Conrad.
Right, because it might pull out King Crush, and that would be the game.
Yeah, I think the Candle Shot swings here as well. Every point of damage could count in this situation.
Yeah, and if you're PlanetHunter, I think you might have to punt here and consider taking down the Shaw, perhaps? Because I think the 5/5 going down pretty easily for free could be a big disaster as well.
I feel like if I'm in PlanetHunter's spot, I'm launching this ultimate at face, and I'm hoping I see Malygos in the second Moonfire. Like, how else are you going to win this game? Like, if you deviate from the attack, Conrad then gets more time to keep developing, and then you're gonna find yourself in the same situation. You're gonna need damage and defense.
You know what? I can get behind that because there's also the ability to gain life through Deathstalker Rexar.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think
that's a dead wolf. I think that's a wolf smashed by the force of nature.
The Ferocious Howls are the one thing I think that opens up a defensive game plan. Because Ferocious Howls provide you a lot of healing for 3 mana.
King Crush is 9 damage right now, and PlanetHunter's at 16, which means that he'd be 1 off lethal if King Crush gets pulled.
And it would also represent the fact that you could take 5 damage from the 5/5 here. But that's what the Houndmaster Shaw is for, is to lock that out. Oh! Crush is the draw. So PlanetHunter's going to be at 1 health, 2 health, because the Candle Shot probably gets preserved. The 5/5 gets taken down, and he's staring down a huge board with Katharina in the mix.
And PlanetHunter stays alive by the skin of his teeth.
If he had not hit the wolf, he would be dead.
Be dead, right.
2 Ferocious Howls.
That's 17 life.
That's 20 extra health between the 2 howls.
Oh, you're right, yes. I don't know why I was counting 9 and 8. Is that enough to stay alive, though? I think he's still...
Well, you can kill the Crush, too.
Oh, he has a Naturalize, you're right.
You can also have Mind Control Tech. You get to Ferocious Howl, Mind Control Tech this turn. And if you want to, you could Moonfire the Katharina to see if you could actually steal a Witchwood Grizzly from
Wait,
your
he might have
opponent's
lethal if he steals King Crush.
Oh! I didn't even think about that.
I can't take this. Now he's getting less armor. This is too much.
So the mind control tech first, I think, is correct because of the lethal potential. You make a sacrifice of 4 health, and I don't think that's the worst deal in the world. But he's safe from an assault outside of Cube and Play Dead unless he kills the Crush here, which it's gone. The Katharina's been swung around.
3, 4, 5.
And you're at 14 still. Like, the damage on board is relevant.
Is there any beast that gets pulled out?
No beasts. No gonk.
Conrad still has had this Houndmaster Shaw alive for so many turns, which is very strong. Conrad tracking? Is he looking for another way to win? Is he looking for Deathstalker Rexar?
Rexar feels like a pretty important card right now.
Yeah, the armor gain itself is going to be pretty crucial.
I think that's the most important part of the card. Terrascale Stalker, so that lets you cube. But I don't know if cube is enough to really get anything done in this spot. That one looks fairly obvious. You know, also just chip damage from PlanetHunter's hero power is super relevant right now. And Conrad needs to shut that down and set up as much of an offensive as possible.
Yeah. Big offensive coming in here.
Oh, boy.
Another ultimate infestation. Now, another mind control tech exists. Remember, if we just get Hunter down to 12, we're okay. So
can you afford to play the Florist this turn, or do you just die?
So if you mind control tech and steal the Houndmaster Shaw,
Spellstone on for 6, so you can clear out one of the Shaws, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
I'd actually want to swipe in here by the face, so if I draw Moonfire, you might have an opportunity to lethal as well.
Yeah, it's just, I'm trying to figure out, what PlanetHunter's best out here is, and it's some mode of defense, I think, into a Moonfire, which means that Branching Pass has to be balanced, like, perfectly in this spot.
What if he just gains a bunch of armor? All right, we're going to find out.
Oh, boy.
And now he can gain a bunch of armor as well.
He could have Spellstoned his own cube in that spot to make 2 Shaws, and I don't know if that plays better or worse defense overall.
I think it's worse.
I think it's worse overall.
Because he can crack the cube later and still get the same thing.
Right, so if you crack the cube on the next turn, you get the same benefit from it. But at 27 health, PlanetHunter has fought back super hard from a very strong Conrad opening. But PlanetHunter had, this was one of the best openings that he could have gotten in the matchup.
Picture's worth 1,000 words, and I think the Druid portrait, Lunara's portrait right now, tells you everything about this game. This is intense. Witchwood Grizzly is a 4/7 in this position?
Yeah, so it's got a 6 health penalty from 13 health, so it lands on 7 overall.
Reasonable, but it's not particularly very strong.
Yeah, the key here is that I think Conrad's trying to figure out a way to push as much as possible and defend as much as possible, and I think this was the way to do it.
He just wants to also avoid taking any damage from his opponent because he knows that PlanetHunter's fishing for specific amounts, and now PlanetHunter's in this position where he can't get that free 12 damage. Or he can't put it down to 12 damage for free because there's all these taunts in the way. He has to swipe the face, for example.
Well, it's the trade of the cube, and then the Shaws actually give each other rush. So he's able to clear off the 5/5 in that instance as well, and then he's facing down 11 damage, plus whatever from hand that Conrad can have right now, which I believe is limited to 1, which is a candle shot.
In that case,
this ends up being more efficient, obviously, because he's saving more health on the Shaws. So now the Florist is landing on Malagos, which opens up to a 9+, 9+6, which means Conrad has to find a way to defend himself or he's dead. And he can't kill and he can't defend himself. That's game.
What a series, Admirable.
Wow, this was
series.
nuts.
I'm speechless. This was a fantastic, in terms of entertainment value, back and forth game and series. Game 5, it's all you can really ask for. Conrad can't do anything else. The Malago swipe, Moonfire has been all but assured. And that was a good spot from PlanetHunter, recognizing that he has just enough breathing room because King Crush has been pulled. And the difference of 1 damage, Admirable. 1 damage with that King Crush.
The Mossy Horror turn that pushed, if the Mossy Horror had been drawn the turn after Keliseth, it would have made the difference in the game.
And Conrad knows what's about to happen. PlanetHunter's going to clean this up with a swipe and Moonfire, sending himself to the semifinals and getting into top 4. Congratulations.
I mean, you said it from the entertainment perspective. You cannot ask for much more from a series. And in a matchup like that one, you start to understand how desperate of a spot that Druid will be in that matchup. That took